Your brother's in-laws are elite. You'll humiliate us. Don't ruin this. Those were the last words my father spoke to me before hanging up on Christmas Eve, and I sat there in my Venice Beach apartment staring at my phone like it might suddenly apologize on his behalf. I'm Sofia Castellano, 29 years old and apparently the family embarrassment. My crime? I'm a social worker who drives a 7-year-old Honda and lives in a rent-controlled building that my mother refers to as that place near the homeless encampment. Never mind that I have a master's degree from UCLA or that I've helped reunite over 100 foster kids with stable families. In the Castellano world, success is measured in stock portfolios and country club memberships, not case files and court testimonies. My brother Ethan, on the other hand, is the golden child. He's 32, works in commercial real estate development, and just got engaged to Vivian Laurent, whose family owns half the luxury hotels between Malibu and Santa Monica. The Laurents are old money, the kind of people who have their own table at Spago and vacation homes they forget they own. When Ethan announced his engagement at Thanksgiving, my mother actually cried tears of joy. I'd never seen her cry about anything, not even at her own mother's funeral. The New Year's Eve party was supposed to be at my parents' estate in Pacific Palisades, a sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion with ocean views and enough square footage to house a small village. Vivian's parents, Richard and Catherine Laurent, were flying in from their Paris residence specifically for the occasion. My mother had been planning this party since October, treating it like a royal wedding reception. She'd hired the same event coordinator who did the Vanity Fair Oscar party. "Sophia, sweetheart, you understand, don't you?" my mother had said when she called 2 days after Dad's blunt rejection. Her voice had that syrupy quality she used when she wanted something. "This is such an important night for Ethan. The Laurents are, well, they're very particular about presentation. You know how you can be sometimes." "How I can be?" I'd asked, even though I knew I shouldn't engage. "You know what I mean. You get so passionate about your little causes. Remember at Thanksgiving when you started talking about the foster care system during dessert? Richard Laurent doesn't want to hear about troubled children while he's eating tiramisu, honey." My little causes. That's what she called the work that got me out of bed every morning. The work that actually meant something beyond increasing profit margins and networking with the right people. I'd told her I understood. I'd made it easy for them because that's what I always did. I was the accommodating daughter, the one who never made waves, who showed up to family dinners even when they made me feel like I was attending my own funeral. But this time, something inside me cracked just a little bit more. So, on New Year's Eve, while my family toasted champagne with LA's elite, I was planning to volunteer at the community center downtown, serving dinner to families who actually appreciated my presence. I'd already laid out my jeans and sweatshirt, ready to spend my evening somewhere I was wanted. That's when my phone rang at 7:30 p.m. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. "You need to get here right now," he said, his voice tight with something I couldn't identify. Panic? Anger? "Ethan, I'm not invited, remember? Dad made that pretty clear." "Forget what Dad said. The Laurents are asking for you. Actually, Catherine is demanding to see you. She saw your photo on the mantle and completely lost it. Sophia, what the hell is going on? How do you know Vivian's mother?" My blood went cold. The mantle, the photo. Oh no. "I'll be there in 40 minutes, I said, already grabbing my keys. I knew exactly which photo he meant. It was from 3 years ago, taken at the Children's Rights Advocacy Gala at the Beverly Hilton. I was receiving an award for my work on a landmark foster care reform case. In the photo, I'm wearing a borrowed designer dress, and I'm standing next to Senator Patricia Morrison and Catherine Laurent, who'd been one of the event's primary sponsors. What my family didn't know, what I never told them because they'd never asked about my work in any meaningful way, was that I'd spent 6 months working directly with Catherine on a foundation she'd quietly established after her younger sister died in the foster care system in the 70s. Catherine Laurent, one of the most influential philanthropists in California, had personally mentored me through the most important case of my career. We'd spent countless hours together. She'd cried in my office. I'd held her hand at a Senate hearing. And I'd never mentioned it to my family because they'd made it abundantly clear that my work was something to be tolerated, not celebrated. I drove up PCH with my heart hammering against my ribs. The whole drive, I kept thinking about the last time I'd seen Catherine, about 3 months ago at a private donor meeting in Beverly Hills. She'd hugged me, told me she was so proud of the work I was continuing to do. She'd mentioned that her daughter was getting married soon, but I'd been so buried in a custody case that I hadn't connected the dots. Vivian Laurent, of course. Catherine had shown me photos over the years, but Vivian lived in New York, worked in fashion. I'd never met her, never thought our worlds would collide. The valet at my parents' house gave me a confused look when I pulled up in my Honda between a Bentley and a Tesla. I was still wearing jeans and a UCLA sweatshirt, my hair in a messy ponytail. This was about to be a disaster. The front door was open, golden light and jazz music spilling out onto the circular driveway. I could hear the party in full swing, the clink of glasses and burst of laughter that comes from people who've never worried about making rent. I walked in, and immediately my mother spotted me from across the foyer. Her face went from confusion to absolute horror. "Charlotte, what are you can't be here looking like that," she started, rushing toward me in her emerald Valentino gown. "Charlotte, oh my goodness, is that her?" Catherine Laurent's voice cut through the crowd, and suddenly the elegant woman I'd worked beside for months was moving through the party like a force of nature, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her champagne-colored dress probably worth more than my car. And then she was hugging me, actually hugging me in front of everyone. Sofia Castellano. When Vivian told me her fiancé's last name was Castellano, I thought, what the odds? And then I saw your photo and Charlotte, you didn't tell me your daughter was the Sofia Castellano. My mother's face was doing something complicated, cycling through confusion, embarrassment, and a dawning horror. You two know each other?"
"Know each other?" Catherine pulled back, keeping her hands on my shoulders. "Sophia changed my life. She's the reason the Laurent Foundation exists. She's the reason we've reformed foster care policies in 3 states. She's brilliant and compassionate and— Wait, why weren't you at dinner? Richard and I specifically asked to meet Ethan's family." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the jazz trio seemed to pause. "There was a misunderstanding," my father said, appearing beside my mother, his face carefully neutral in that way that meant he was absolutely panicking inside. "We thought Sophia had work obligations." "On New Year's Eve?" Catherine's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. She wasn't buying it, and her expression was shifting into something cooler, more appraising. I'd seen her use that look on negligent bureaucrats and corrupt officials. How odd. Vivian appeared next, stunning in a white cocktail dress, her arm linked through Ethan's. My brother looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble flooring. "Mother, what's going on?" "Vivian, darling, this is Sofia Castellano, the Sofia I've told you about so many times. She's Ethan's sister." I watched recognition dawn on Vivian's face, followed by something like excitement. "The social worker? The one who testified before Congress? Oh my gosh, Ethan never mentioned— Mother talks about you constantly. You're like her personal hero." Ethan's face had gone red. "I didn't realize you two knew each other." "How could you not realize?" Catherine's voice had an edge now. Sophia's work has been featured in the Times, the LA Magazine, even Vanity Fair did a piece on her last year. She's been my guest at multiple foundation events. We don't really discuss Sophia's work, my mother said faintly, and I could see her desperately trying to figure out how to spin this situation. She's so humble about her achievements. Humble, or you never asked? The question came from Richard Laurent, who joined our growing circle. He was tall, silver-haired, with the kind of presence that commanded boardrooms. His eyes were sharp as they moved from my parents to me. I'm confused, Charlotte. Your daughter has been doing groundbreaking work in child welfare, has been personally mentored by my wife, has won numerous awards, and you didn't think to mention this when we were discussing family over dinner? My father opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Actually, I said quietly, finding my voice, they asked me not to come tonight. They thought I'd be an embarrassment in front of you. I don't know what made me say it. Maybe it was 3 decades of being dismissed, of being made to feel small, of pretending not to notice that I was the consolation prize in my parents' genetic lottery. Maybe it was the look on my mother's face, the way she was already calculating how to salvage her social standing. Maybe I was just tired of making things easy. Catherine's face went very still. I'm sorry, what? They told me I was too embarrassing to attend tonight. My father said I'd humiliate them in front of elite company. They thought my work, my life, wasn't good enough for this party. The silence that followed felt like it had weight, pressing down on all of us. I could see other guests starting to notice, the party's energy shifting as people sensed drama unfolding. Charlotte, Catherine's voice was ice. Tell me Sophia is joking.
My mother's mouth opened and closed. My father looked like he was calculating exit strategies. We simply thought, my father started. You thought wrong, Richard cut him off. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. Catherine, I think we should go. What? No, Richard, please. My mother's composure cracked completely. This is all a misunderstanding. Sophia, tell them it's a misunderstanding. Everyone was looking at me. Ethan, Vivian, my parents, the Laurents, and about 50 of Los Angeles's most influential people who'd gradually stopped their conversations to watch this unfold. It's not a misunderstanding, I said, but it's fine. I'm used to it. It's not fine, Vivian said, and there was steel in her voice I hadn't expected. Ethan, did you know about this? My brother looked at his fiancée, then at me, and I saw something I'd rarely seen in his eyes. Shame. Viv, I can explain. Did you know they excluded your sister from tonight because they were embarrassed by her? I thought it was better if... He stumbled over his words. The family dynamics are complicated. The family dynamics are cruel, Catherine corrected. Richard, get our coats. Vivian, we're leaving. Mother, wait. Vivian looked torn between her parents and Ethan. No, I won't celebrate in a home where someone like Sophia is treated as less than. I've spent 3 years watching her fight for children who have no one, watching her sacrifice her own comfort and safety to protect the vulnerable, and I will not drink champagne with people who think that work is something to be ashamed of. My mother was crying now, real tears, her makeup running. Please, Catherine, you don't understand the pressure we've been under, trying to make sure everything was perfect. Perfect. Catherine's laugh was bitter. You excluded your daughter to make things perfect. Charlotte, I thought I knew you. We've been friends for years. I thought you had more substance than this. Mrs. Laurent, I said, stepping forward, please don't leave because of me. This is Ethan and Vivian's engagement celebration. Whatever issues my family and I have, they shouldn't ruin their night. Catherine looked at me with something like heartbreak. Sweet girl, you're still protecting them. After everything, you're still making it easy. I was. She was right. That's what I'd always done.
The engagement is off, Vivian said suddenly, and the crowd gasped. She pulled the ring off her finger, a stunning emerald-cut diamond that probably cost more than I'd earn in 5 years, and held it out to Ethan. I can't marry into a family that treats people this way. I'm sorry, Ethan, I really am, but my mother raised me to value character over comfort, and your family just showed me exactly what they value. Vivian, no, please. Ethan looked desperate, reaching for her, but she stepped back. Think about what they did, she said, and her voice was shaking. They excluded your sister, someone my mother considers family, someone who's done more good in this world than most people even attempt, because they thought she'd embarrass them.
What does that say about who they are? What does that say about who you are if you went along with it? I felt like I was watching a car crash in slow motion. This wasn't what I wanted. I hadn't come here to destroy my brother's engagement, to blow up my family's social standing. I'd just come because Ethan called. "Everyone, please," my father tried, his voice booming in that authoritative way he used in business meetings. "Let's all calm down and discuss this rationally." "There's nothing to discuss," Richard said. "Catherine, Vivian, let's go. Charlotte, Theodore, thank you for the evening. It's been very illuminating." And just like that, the Lorents swept out of the party, Vivian's white dress disappearing through the door like a ghost. The remaining guests stood in shocked silence, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips, the jazz trio having given up all pretense of playing. My mother turned on me, her face transformed by rage. "You've ruined everything. Everything. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "What I've done?" The words came out louder than I intended. "I got excluded from my own family's party, showed up when my brother called, and told the truth. That's what I did." "The truth?" My father's face was purple. "You destroyed your brother's engagement with your truth. You destroyed our relationship with one of the most important families in California. I think you need to leave," Ethan said, and it took me a second to realize he was talking to me. His face was pale, his eyes hard. "You've done enough damage for one night." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "Ethan!" "Just go, Sophia, please." I looked around at the faces staring at me. Some looked shocked, others scandalized, a few almost gleeful at the drama they'd witnessed. My mother was sobbing into my father's shoulder. Ethan looked like a stranger. And I realized that I'd spent 29 years trying to earn love from people who'd never been capable of giving it to me the way I needed. I'd made myself small, made myself quiet, made myself convenient. And at the first moment I'd stood tall, they'd tried to cut me back down. "Okay," I said softly. "I'll go." I walked out of that house, past the valets and the luxury cars, got into my Honda, and drove. I didn't cry. I was too numb for tears. I just drove down PCH with the windows down, the Pacific Ocean black and vast beside me, and tried to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do now. My phone started ringing around midnight. First my mother, then my father, then Ethan. I didn't answer. Then came the texts, dozens of them, ranging from my mother's, "How could you do this to us?" to my father's, "We need to discuss your behavior," to Ethan's, "You're dead to me." But there were other messages too. One from Catherine, "Sophia, call me when you can. You did nothing wrong tonight, nothing." One from Vivian, "Thank you for your honesty. I mean that." And then, around 2 a.m., a message from a number I didn't know. "Sophia Castellano, this is Jennifer Walsh from the LA Times. I was at your parents' party tonight. I'd like to speak with you about what happened." I think there's a story here that needs to be told.
I stared at that message for a long time, sitting in my apartment, looking out at the Venice Beach boardwalk where homeless people slept under the stars and the sound of the ocean mixed with distant sirens. A story that needs to be told. I thought about all the stories I'd helped tell over the years, stories of children lost in the system, of families torn apart by bureaucracy and neglect, of people who fell through society's cracks because nobody with power cared enough to catch them. I'd spent my career giving voice to the voiceless. Maybe it was time to use my own voice. I texted Jennifer Walsh back, "Let's talk." What I didn't know then, sitting in my apartment in the early hours of New Year's Day, was that the party disaster was just the beginning. I didn't know about the secrets my family had been keeping, the real reason they'd wanted me away from the Lawrence, or the elaborate web of lies that was about to unravel. I didn't know that Vivian would become one of my closest allies, or that Catherine's foundation was about to make me an offer that would change everything. And I definitely didn't know that my father's business partner was about to be arrested for fraud, or that the investigation would reveal my family's connection to a scheme that had been stealing from the very foster care programs I'd been fighting to protect. But I'd learn all of that soon enough. For now, I just sat in my apartment, watching the sun rise over the Pacific, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, I was finally free. The LA Times article hit 3 days later, and it detonated like a bomb in my family's carefully constructed world. Jennifer Walsh had done her homework. She'd interviewed Catherine Laurent, gotten quotes from people at the party, and somehow, and this was the part that made my stomach drop when I first read it, she'd uncovered financial records linking my father's real estate development firm to a series of fraudulent contracts with the Los Angeles County foster care system. Properties that were supposed to be renovated group homes, funded by taxpayer money and private donations, had either never been renovated at all or had been flipped for massive profits while children continued to live in substandard conditions. Prominent LA families' double life, charity galas, and corrupt contracts, read the headline, above a photo of my parents at a foster care fundraising event from 2 years ago. I was drinking coffee in my apartment when Catherine called. "Have you seen it?" I'm reading it now, my hands shaking so badly I had to set down my mug. "Catherine, I didn't know Jennifer was investigating my father's business. I thought she just wanted to write about what happened at the party." "I know, sweetheart. Jennifer's been working this story for months. She was at your parents' party because she was investigating them, not because she was invited. When you confirmed the family dynamics she'd already suspected, that they cared more about image than substance, it gave her the context she needed."
I felt sick. My father's firm, Castellano Development Group, had been prominent in Los Angeles real estate for over 30 years. They'd built shopping centers, apartment complexes, and yes, several facilities contracted by the county for foster care housing. I'd never looked closely at his business because, honestly, I'd never wanted to. We operated in different worlds. Or so I'd thought. "The properties listed in this article," I said, scanning for the details. "The Riverside Group Home, the Glendale Transitional Housing Facility. Catherine, I've visited those places. I've placed children there. They were supposed to be renovated 2 years ago. They were never touched. The money disappeared. Theodore's partner, Lawrence Brennan, has been arrested. The DA's office is building a case, and they're going to want to talk to you." "To me? Why? I didn't know anything about this." "Because you're the expert witness who can testify about the actual conditions of those facilities, about the impact on the children placed there. Sophia, your testimony could be crucial to proving that they knew exactly what they were doing, taking money meant for vulnerable children and pocketing it." I closed my eyes, trying to process. My father was involved in stealing from foster kids. The same kids I'd dedicated my career to protecting.
The same kids whose stories had kept me awake at night, whose faces I saw every time I closed my eyes. Does my mother know? Ethan? I don't know, but you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get worse before it gets better. She was right. By that afternoon, news vans were parked outside my parents' Palisades estate. By evening, my father had released a statement through his attorney claiming he'd been misled by Lawrence Brennan, that he was a victim of his partner's fraud. My mother posted on social media about the cruel attacks on our family during this difficult time. Ethan called me for the first time since New Year's. Did you know about this article? Not about the investigation into Dad's business. I talked to Jennifer Walsh about what happened at the party, that's all. That's all? Sophia, do you have any idea what you've done? Dad could go to prison. The company is being investigated. We're losing contracts. Investors are pulling out. Ethan, if Dad was stealing money meant for foster children, he deserves to go to prison. The silence on the other end of the line was arctic. He's our father. And those are children who depend on adults to protect them. Children who were living in buildings that were supposed to be safe and renovated and weren't because Dad and his partner took the money. You don't know that he knew. Yes, I do. I've read the emails the Times published. He knew exactly what was happening. He joked about it, Ethan. There's an email where he tells Lawrence that nobody checks on foster facilities anyway. The kids can't complain. I have that email memorized now because I can't stop reading it, can't stop thinking about every child I placed in those buildings while Dad was laughing about cutting corners. So what? You're going to testify against him? You're going to help send our father to prison? If that's what justice requires, yes. He hung up. I sat there holding my dead phone, and finally, the tears came. Not because I regretted my decision, but because I was grieving the family I'd thought I had, the family I'd spent years trying to be good enough for. That family had never existed. They'd been an illusion, a pretty facade hiding rot underneath. The DA's office contacted me the next day. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Amanda Torres, who I'd worked with on previous cases, laid it out clearly. We have documentary evidence of fraud. What we need is someone who can testify to the real-world impact, someone credible who actually worked with these facilities. That's you, Sophia. When do you need me?
The grand jury convenes in 2 weeks, but Sophia, I need you to understand what you're signing up for. Your father's legal team is going to come after you. They're going to claim you have a vendetta, that you're a disgruntled daughter trying to hurt your family. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly. At least this way, something good might come from it. The next week was a nightmare. My parents' attorney gave interviews claiming I was mentally unstable, that I'd always been jealous of my successful family, that I was being manipulated by the Laurents who had their own business disputes with Castellano Development. Conservative news outlets ran stories about vindictive daughter destroys family business. My social media was flooded with messages, some supportive, many vicious. But there were other messages too. Former foster kids I'd worked with, social workers and child advocates, people who'd been waiting for someone to expose the corruption in the system. They shared their stories, their experiences with substandard facilities. A 17-year-old girl named Maya posted a video about living in the Riverside group home, showing the mold on the walls, the broken heaters in winter, the locks that didn't work on the doors. Miss Castellano tried to get us help, she said to the camera. She filed complaints, but nobody listened because the people making money off us were too powerful. Not anymore. That video went viral. Suddenly, this wasn't just a story about a family dispute or white-collar crime. It was about children, real children with faces and names and voices. My phone rang late one Tuesday night. Vivian. I'm at the Chateau Marmont. Can you meet me? I found her in the garden area, wrapped in a cashmere coat despite the mild LA winter, a glass of wine untouched on the table beside her. She looked different than she had at the party, less polished, more real. Ethan's been calling me, begging me to talk to you, to convince you not to testify. He says if you really loved your family, you wouldn't do this. My chest tightened. What do you think? I think love without accountability isn't love, it's enabling. I think your brother is so deep in denial that he can't see the difference between loyalty and complicity. She looked at me directly. I also think you're the bravest person I've met in a long time, and I'm sorry I haven't said that until now. You called off your engagement because of what my family did. That took courage. No, that took basic decency. What you're doing, standing up knowing it might cost you the only family you have, that's courage. She paused. My mother wanted you to tell me that the Laurent Foundation is establishing a new initiative focused on housing reform for foster children. She wants you to lead it. Full salary, complete autonomy, resources to actually make changes. She's been wanting to offer it to you for months, but she didn't want you to feel pressured while you were dealing with your family situation. Vivian, I can't accept a job from your mother right now. The optics.
The optics are that a highly qualified professional who's been doing this work for years is finally getting the support and resources she deserves. Sophia, stop making yourself small. Stop worrying about what other people think and start accepting what you've earned. I wanted to argue, but she was right. I'd spent my whole life trying not to take up too much space, not to seem too ambitious or demanding. Even now, offered a dream position, my first instinct was to decline, to avoid seeming opportunistic. Can I think about it? Of course. But, Sophia, stop punishing yourself for other people's failures. Your family's corruption isn't your fault. Their shame isn't yours to carry. The grand jury testimony was scheduled for a Thursday morning. The night before, my mother showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't let her in, but curiosity won out. She looked smaller somehow, older. Her designer clothes couldn't hide the strain in her face, the dark circles under her eyes. Your father didn't send me. He doesn't know I'm here. What do you want, Mom? I want to understand how you could do this to us. We gave you everything. You gave me everything except what I actually needed. Love, respect, basic acknowledgement that my life had value even though it looked different from what you wanted. She flinched. We loved you. We do love you. No, you loved the idea of me, the version of me that stayed quiet and didn't cause problems. But the real me, the person I actually am, you were embarrassed by her. You excluded her from family events. You told her she wasn't good enough. We were protecting you. From what? From people like the Lorents, who turned out to respect me more than my own family ever did? I shook my head. You weren't protecting me, Mom. You were protecting yourselves, your image, your social status, your comfort. And when that meant sacrificing me, you did it without hesitation. So this is revenge? You're going to destroy your father to punish us? This isn't about punishment. It's about justice. Dad stole money from programs meant to help children, children who have nothing, who depend on the system to keep them safe. And he did it knowing exactly what the consequences would be, knowing they'd continue living in dangerous, substandard conditions. I've held children who were hurt in those facilities, Mom. I've looked them in the eyes and promised them I'd keep them safe. And the whole time, my own father was profiting from their suffering. My mother's face crumpled. What am I supposed to do? He's my husband. I don't know. That's something you have to figure out. But I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell the truth, no matter what it costs me. She left without saying goodbye. I watched her go, this woman who'd given me birth but never really known me, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. She'd spent her whole life performing, curating an image, chasing approval from people who didn't matter. She'd traded authenticity for acceptance, and now she was losing both. The grand jury room was smaller than I expected, just a panel of ordinary citizens listening to testimony. Amanda Torres walked me through my credentials, my experience, my involvement with the facilities in question. Then she asked the crucial questions.
Dr. Castellano, in your professional opinion, were the conditions at the Riverside Group Home and Glendale Transitional Housing Facility adequate for the vulnerable children placed there? No. The Riverside facility had significant mold issues, inadequate heating, and security problems that put residents at risk. The Glendale facility had electrical issues that created fire hazards, plumbing that frequently failed, and structural problems. Both facilities were supposed to have been renovated using county funds and private donations. Those renovations never happened.
Did you file complaints about these conditions?
Multiple times. I documented everything, submitted reports to the county, followed every official channel. The response was always the same. The facilities were certified as renovated, the paperwork was in order, there was nothing they could do. The paperwork signed by Theodore Castellano's firm, certifying that renovations had been completed to code. Yes. Dr. Castellano, Theodore Castellano is your father, correct? Yes. And you're testifying here today despite that relationship. I'm testifying because of the children who depended on adults to protect them and were failed. My relationship to my father doesn't change what he did or its impact. The questions continued for over an hour. They showed me emails, contracts, financial records. Each document was another piece of evidence that my father had known exactly what he was doing, that the fraud had been deliberate and systematic. When they showed me the email where he joked about foster kids not being able to complain, I had to pause to compose myself. These are children, I said finally. Human beings who've already been traumatized, who've already been failed by the adults in their lives. They deserved better. They deserved what they were promised: safe, clean, renovated facilities. Instead, they got mold and broken locks, and adults who saw them as profit margins. After the testimony, Amanda walked me out. That was powerful, thank you. What happens now? Now we wait for the grand jury's decision. But Sophia, based on what we've presented, I'm confident we'll get an indictment. Your father's going to be charged. The indictment came down 2 days later. Theodore Castellano and Lawrence Brennan were charged with fraud, embezzlement, and criminal conspiracy. The news coverage was extensive. My father's attorney held a press conference calling me a traitor. Conservative outlets ran segments about family loyalty, but mainstream coverage focused on the children, on Maya's viral video, on the systemic corruption that had allowed this to happen. And something unexpected happened. Other victims came forward, people who'd been in the system, who'd lived in facilities managed by companies like Castellano Development, who'd been too afraid or too worn down to speak up before. Their collective voice was powerful, undeniable. Ethan sent me a single text. "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family." I replied, "I didn't destroy this family. I just stopped pretending it was something it wasn't." He didn't respond. The trial was set for 6 months later, which gave me time to start my new position with the Laurent Foundation. Catherine insisted on a press conference to announce it, partly to establish the legitimacy of the hire, partly to send a message. The Laurent Foundation has always been committed to protecting vulnerable children, Catherine said to the assembled reporters. Dr. Sophia Castellano has spent her career doing exactly that. Her expertise, integrity, and courage make her the ideal person to lead our new housing reform initiative. We're honored to have her. Vivian stood beside her mother, and she caught my eye and smiled. We'd become friends over the past weeks, bonding over late-night conversations and shared frustration with systemic injustice. She'd also started dating a civil rights attorney she'd met at one of her mother's foundation events, someone who valued her mind more than her family's money. What about your relationship with the Castellano family? A reporter called out. Are you concerned about the appearance of bias? Dr. Castellano's relationship with her family is irrelevant to her qualifications, Catherine said firmly. What's relevant is that she's one of the foremost experts in child welfare in this state, and she's demonstrated repeatedly that she prioritizes justice over personal comfort. That's exactly the kind of leadership this initiative needs. The trial, when it finally happened, was brutal. My father's defense team tried everything, attacking my credibility, claiming I was biased, suggesting I was being paid off by the Laurents. But the evidence was overwhelming. The emails, the financial records, the testimony from contractors who'd been pressured to falsify inspection reports, and yes, my testimony about the real-world impact on children. Maya testified too. She was 18 now, aging out of the system, and she spoke clearly and powerfully about living in facilities that were supposed to be safe, but weren't. I had a lock that didn't work on my bedroom door, she told the jury. I told Miss Castellano and she tried to get it fixed, but nothing happened because the people in charge said everything was fine, said the building had been renovated. They lied, and they knew they were lying because they were the ones who were supposed to do the renovations and didn't. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, the verdict was guilty on all counts. I wasn't in the courtroom when it happened. Amanda thought it was better if I wasn't, to avoid any appearance that I was celebrating my father's downfall. But she called me immediately after. Guilty. All counts. He's looking at significant prison time. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired and sad. My father would go to prison. My mother was filing for divorce, trying to distance herself from the scandal. Ethan had cut off all contact with me, choosing his parents over accountability. But there were other outcomes too. The Riverside and Glendale facilities were being completely rebuilt, using seized assets from Castellano Development. Maya had been accepted to UCLA on a full scholarship, partly because her testimony had attracted attention from donors who wanted to support her. The Laurent Foundation's housing reform initiative was starting to make real changes in how facilities were certified and inspected. And I had finally stopped making myself small. 6 months after the trial, I was giving a talk at a child welfare conference when I saw Ethan in the back of the room. He looked different, thinner, older, wearing a suit that wasn't quite as expensive as the ones he used to favor. When I finished, he waited while people came up to congratulate me, to ask questions, to share their own stories. Finally, we were alone in the hallway. I got a job, he said without preamble. Not in real estate. I'm working for a nonprofit that helps formerly incarcerated people find housing. It doesn't pay much, but it's good work. I'm not here to apologize. I'm not ready for that yet. But I wanted you to know that I've been seeing a therapist, working through some stuff. And she asked me if I was proud of my sister. And I realized I couldn't remember ever being proud of you, because I was too busy being jealous. That caught me off guard. Jealous? You always knew who you were, what mattered to you. Even when Mom and Dad tried to make you feel small, you kept being yourself. I never had that. I was whatever they wanted me to be. And when that fell apart, I didn't know who I was underneath. Who are you now? He smiled, small and tentative. I'm figuring it out, but I think maybe I'm someone who could learn to be proud of having you as a sister, if you'd let me try. I thought about all the years of dismissal, the cruelty, the way he'd chosen our parents over what was right. I thought about how much easier it would be to just walk away, to leave behind the whole toxic mess of my family. But I also thought about all the children I'd worked with who'd been hurt by adults who should have protected them, who'd learned to build walls so high that love couldn't get in. I thought about how many second chances I'd fought to give them,
how many times I'd advocated for one more opportunity, one more try. "Okay," I said, "you can try." We stood there in the hallway, my brother and I, not hugging, not pretending everything was fine, just existing in the same space without animosity. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a beginning. That night, I had dinner with Catherine and Vivian at a small restaurant in Santa Monica. We toasted to the Foundation's first year, to Maya's acceptance to UCLA, to the new facilities that were actually safe and clean and everything they should have been from the start. "Your father's appeal was denied," Catherine mentioned casually. "He'll serve his full sentence." I nodded. I'd stopped following the case obsessively, stopped letting it consume me. My father had made his choices, and he was living with the consequences. That wasn't my burden to carry anymore. "How are you doing with all of this, really?" "I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. For the first time in my life, I'm not trying to be someone I'm not. I'm not apologizing for taking up space or doing work that matters. I'm just me, and that's enough." "It's more than enough," Catherine said warmly. "You're changing lives, Sophia. Not just the children we're helping now, but everyone who sees what you did and realizes that standing up for what's right is possible, even when it costs you everything." "It didn't cost me everything," I corrected. "It cost me a family that was built on lies and shame and performance. What I gained, the work, the relationships, the self-respect, that's worth so much more." Later, driving home along PCH with the windows down and the ocean breeze lifting my hair, I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago, the one who'd made herself small, who'd accepted exclusion from her own family's events, who'd been so desperate for approval that she'd convinced herself it didn't hurt. That girl was gone. In her place was someone stronger, someone who'd stood up when it mattered, who'd chosen justice over comfort, truth over family loyalty. Someone who'd learned that the right kind of love doesn't ask you to diminish yourself, doesn't require you to accept crumbs and call it a feast. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Miss C, just got my housing assignment for UCLA. They put me in the honors dorm. Couldn't have done this without you." I smiled, pulling over to type a response. "You did this yourself. I just helped clear the path. Proud of you." Another text came through, this one from a number I didn't recognize. "Dr. Castellano, this is Kevin Torres. I was in the Riverside facility 3 years ago. I saw you testify at the trial. I just wanted to say thank you. Because of what you did, my little sister got placed in the new facility. She's safe now. We both are." These messages, these stories, these lives changed for the better. This was what mattered. This was what I'd fought for. Not revenge, not to punish my family, but to protect children who couldn't protect themselves. To hold powerful people accountable when they abused the vulnerable. The Pacific Ocean stretched out beside me, vast and dark and beautiful. Somewhere in the Palisades, my mother was probably hosting another party, pretending the scandal had never happened, performing for new audiences. Somewhere in a minimum security prison, my father was learning that actions had consequences. Somewhere in the city, Ethan was figuring out who he was without the family identity to hide behind. And I was here, driving home to my rent-controlled apartment in Venice Beach, doing work that mattered, surrounded by people who valued me for who I actually was. I'd lost a family built on performance and gained a life built on purpose. I'd take that trade every single time. The moon hung low over the water, and I turned up the music, letting the night air wash over me, feeling lighter than I had in years. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and go to work changing the system that had failed so many children. I'd fight with bureaucrats and politicians and anyone else who tried to prioritize profit over protection. I'd continue the work that my family had found embarrassing, that had gotten me excluded from parties, but included in the lives of people who needed someone to care. And I wouldn't apologize for any of it. Because I'd finally learned the most important lesson of all. The people who truly matter will love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be. And the ones who need you to be smaller, quieter, less than yourself, they were never your people to begin with. Justice had been served. The system was changing. Children were safer. And I was free. Finally, completely, gloriously free to be exactly who I was meant to be. That was the real victory. Not the trial outcome, not my father's conviction, not even the professional success. The real victory was standing in my truth, refusing to shrink, choosing integrity over acceptance. And as I pulled into my parking space, surrounded by the sounds of Venice Beach at night, I realized something profound. I wasn't the embarrassment my family had claimed I was. I was the best thing they'd ever had, and they'd been too blind to see it. Their loss, my gain, and I was never looking back.